The sky was burning. Lieutenant Kai held the seat with both hands as his escape pod shook violently. Alarms screamed inside. Smoke filled the small space. Outside, fire and clouds spun together as the pod fell through the alien atmosphere. "Brace for impact," the computer warned. Kai closed his eyes. Then, boom. The pod slammed into the ground. Metal bent, glass cracked. Kai's head hit the control panel. Everything went dark. When he opened his eyes, it was night. His body ached, but he was alive. Slowly, Kai crawled out of the broken pod. He stepped onto soft, glowing grass. Giant trees surrounded him. The sky above was filled with stars he didn't recognize. He was not on Earth. He looked at his wrist device. No signal. No rescue. No other humans. He was completely alone. He took a few steps, limping. Something moved in the distance, too big, too slow to be human. It was like the forest itself was alive. Suddenly he heard a deep sound. Thum, then again. Thum, thum. Kai froze. The ground shook with each step. Trees parted like curtains, and then he saw her, a giant woman 10 times his size with long silver hair and skin that shimmered like moonlight. Her body was strong, muscles moved like steel under silk. She wore armor made of bones and stone. Strange tattoos glowed on her face and arms. She stared at him. Kai's heart raced. He stepped back. She opened her mouth and said something in a deep, melodic voice. He didn't understand the words, but the tone wasn't angry. Still, he panicked. He pulled out his small plasma cutter and held it in front of him. "Stay back," he shouted, but she didn't stop. She took one more step, then crouched down slowly. Her golden eyes watched him like he was something precious, or fragile, or delicious. Kai's mind raced. He had heard stories, ancient legends from alien explorers. This planet was once home to giant carnivores, hunters, monsters, and now one of them was looking at him like he was dinner. "Don't eat me," he whispered, backing away. She reached out. Her hand was massive, bigger than his whole body. Kai turned and ran, but he didn't get far. A vine caught his leg. He fell hard. Before he could get up, he felt warm fingers wrap around his body. He was lifted into the air like a doll. He kicked. He shouted. She didn't hurt him. She held him in her palm and tilted her head, curious. Then she gently touched his face with one fingertip. Her skin was warm, soft. Not at all what he expected. "What are you?" she whispered in her language. Kai didn't answer. He was too scared. The giantess stood up and walked. Her footsteps shook the earth. Kai saw animals run from her shadow. Glowing flowers bent in her path. The trees seemed to bow as she passed. Soon she reached a giant tree with silver leaves. She climbed into it like it was her home. Inside, she placed Kai on a bed of moss and flowers. He didn't understand. Was this a prison? A nest? She left for a moment and returned with something that looked like food. Fruits, steamed roots, sweet-smelling herbs. Kai didn't touch it. "What do you want from me?" he whispered. She didn't answer. She just sat beside him, humming a low song, watching him with eyes full of mystery. As night deepened, Kai curled up, pretending to sleep. But his mind was spinning. Who was she? What did she want? And most of all, was he her guest or her next meal? Kai woke up to a strange smell, sweet, soft, and a little sharp like mint. He opened his eyes slowly. He was no longer in the giant tree. The sky above was open now, but the walls around him were high. He was inside a cage. But this was no normal prison. The walls were made of vines, strong but flexible, woven together with glowing flowers that pulsed with soft light. Butterflies danced around. The air was warm and peaceful, but it was still a cage. Kai stood up quickly and touched the vines. They were alive, moving slightly, as if breathing. He pulled one, but it didn't break. He looked around. Outside the cage, the giantess, the same one from before, sat on a stone, sharpening a bone blade. Her silver hair was tied back now. She looked focused. Kai yelled, "Let me go!" She didn't move. Instead, she stood, walked to the cage, and looked down at him. Her eyes were gentle, but firm. She spoke again in her strange language. Kai didn't understand a word, but the tone. It was soft, not angry, not cruel. Then she did something strange. She reached into the cage and placed a small bowl of glowing water in front of him. Beside it, she dropped a piece of steamed root and a fruit that shimmered blue. Kai didn't move. She waited. After a few moments, she made a slow motion with her hand like a wave toward the food and then stepped back. He still didn't eat. He didn't trust her. Was she trying to be kind? Or fatten him up? Suddenly, a loud roar echoed through the trees. Birds flew into the sky. Kai jumped. The giantess grabbed her blade and turned. Another giant was coming, this one male, taller than her with red tattoos and sharp armor made of fangs. Kai watched from inside the cage. The male growled something loud in their language. He pointed at Kai. He wanted him. Kai's heart sank. Maybe this one would really eat him. But the silver-haired giantess stepped between the cage and the other. She raised her blade and shouted something. They argued. The male tried to push past her. In a flash, she slashed the air with her weapon and roared. The male stopped. Shocked. Then, he laughed. A deep, terrible sound. He looked at Kai once more, with hunger in his eyes, then turned and vanished into the trees. Kai sat down slowly. She had protected him. She could have handed him over. But she didn't. Why? She walked back to the cage, breathing hard. She was angry. Not at Kai, but at the other giant. She crouched and looked at him again. This time her eyes looked different. Sad. Tired. Scared. Kai whispered, "What are you?" She said one word, slowly, pointing at herself. Shivala. Then she pointed at him. Kai. He froze. How did she know his name? Then he remembered. His escape pod had his name written on the side. Shivala, he repeated. She smiled, just a little. For the first time. Kai didn't feel like food. He felt like something else. Important. That night, as the stars moved across the sky, Shivala sat beside the cage, singing in her strange language. Kai listened. The song felt like a story, even if he couldn't understand the words. He didn't eat. He didn't sleep. He just watched her. And somewhere deep inside him, a question burned. Why did she save me? And what does she want in return? The night passed slowly. Kai sat inside the cage, tired but unable to sleep. The glowing flowers dimmed with the coming of dawn. Shivala was still there, sitting cross-legged, her blade across her knees, watching the stars disappear. She had not slept either. Just as the first light touched the trees, she stood and walked away without a word. Kai thought this might be his chance. He pulled at the vines again, twisted them, kicked them. Nothing worked. Then he heard soft footsteps returning. But it wasn't Shivala. A small creature, furry with 3 eyes, tiptoed to the edge of the cage. It sniffed him, then ran off with a squeak. Kai shook his head. This place is insane, he muttered. Shivala returned, carrying a large basket made of leaves and bark. Inside were herbs, powders, and bones. Kai watched as she sat under a large tree and laid out her tools. She wasn't preparing weapons. She was making medicine. A large bird-like creature limped toward her from the trees. Blood dripped from its side. Kai held his breath, expecting her to kill it. Instead, she placed her hand gently on its wound. She mixed a glowing blue powder and pressed it into the cut. The creature didn't scream. It relaxed. Then she sang to it in a low voice. Kai had never seen anything like it. She wasn't just a warrior. She was a healer. For the first time, he saw something in her eyes that didn't scare him. Kindness. Hours passed. Kai drank the glowing water she had left. It made his headache disappear. His fear began to soften into curiosity. Why was she helping him? Why was she helping anything? That night, as stars returned to the sky, Shivala came back to the cage. But this time she didn't bring food. She brought a small stone. It glowed with soft orange light. She placed it in front of him and pointed. "Membra," she said slowly. Kai hesitated, then touched the stone. Images flashed in his mind. He saw a village of giants, fires, warriors dancing, a baby, tiny compared to them, crying in a cradle. Young Shivala stood alone watching others. No one touched her. No one talked to her. She had always been different. Then he saw an old female giant, dressed in robes. She handed Shivala a stone and whispered something. Shivala pressed the stone to her heart. Back in the present, Shivala looked at Kai with soft eyes. "Membra," she said again. Kai understood. This stone shared memories. She had let him see her truth, her pain, her childhood. No one trusted her, no one loved her except the creatures she healed, and now maybe the tiny human she had found in the forest. Kai whispered, "You're not a monster." Shivala tilted her head, not understanding his words, but perhaps feeling the meaning. Suddenly, a loud snap echoed through the trees. Shivala stood quickly. Kai followed her gaze. 3 dark shapes moved between the trees. Tall, armored, not friendly. Shivala growled, low and dangerous. She reached into her belt and pulled out not just her bone blade, but a ring of smoke bombs. Kai had no idea what was coming, but his heartbeat told him it wouldn't be peaceful. Shivala turned to him, touched the cage once, with her palm, and suddenly the flowers turned red. Kai froze. The cage was now glowing like fire. A warning? A defense? She whispered something he didn't understand, then ran toward the shadows. Kai pressed his face to the vines and watched her disappear into the dark forest. He didn't know what she was fighting. But for the first time, he wasn't afraid for himself. He was afraid for her. Morning light touched the forest with golden rays. Kai sat inside the glowing cage of flowers, his back against the vines. His eyes were fixed on the path where Shivala had disappeared the night before. Then he saw her. She returned slowly, her armor scratched, her blade stained with dry blood. Her left arm was bleeding, wrapped in leaf bandages, but her face was calm. She had won. But she looked tired. Shivala opened the cage with a soft command. The vines unwrapped themselves like they could hear her voice. Kai stepped out slowly. He looked up at her. "You okay?" She didn't answer. But she knelt and tapped his chest lightly with her finger. Then she said, "Rit Suel." A few moments later, Shivala lifted him and carried him through the forest. This time there was no fear in Kai's heart, only confusion. They reached a wide clearing. Tall stone statues stood in a circle. Torches were lit. Strange drums echoed. In the air, a crowd of giants stood around, their eyes sharp, their hands on weapons. Some looked curious. Most looked angry. A tall elder stepped forward. His face was carved with deep lines. His eyes were silver, like old moonlight. He looked down, at Kai like he was dust. He spoke something to Shivala. His tone was hard. She replied, proud and clear. Kai couldn't understand, but the message was clear. She was fighting for him. Then the elder raised one long hand. He pointed at a narrow bridge made of vines, stretching over a deep pit filled with glowing blue mist. On the other side of the bridge and was a beast, massive, 6 legs, glowing red eyes, horned back, chained but growling. The elder looked down at Kai. "Choosing," he said in broken English. Kai's heart dropped. This was a test, not of strength, of courage. Kai looked at Shivala. Her eyes were steady. She believed in him. He stepped forward. The crowd laughed, soft, cruel laughter. To them, he was a joke, a toy, a bug walking to death. Kai walked onto the bridge. It swayed with every step. Below was the mist, deep, endless, cold. In front, the beast roared. Kai stopped halfway. He pulled a small item from his pocket, his last working tool, a flare. He took a deep breath and whispered, "Think, not fight." The beast lunged as the bridge ended. Kai held up the flare, then lit it and threw it right into the beast's face. The flash exploded with red light. The beast screamed and backed away, blind. Kai didn't run. He walked slowly past it, calm and brave. The crowd went silent. On the other side, the elder met his eyes and slowly nodded. Kai had passed. But something strange happened. An old female giant stepped forward. Her eyes were pure gold. She stared at Kai, then knelt. She placed a glowing hand on his chest and said one word, "Chosen." The other giants gasped. Shivala stepped forward and took Kai's hand. For the first time, he was not a prisoner. He was part of something ancient, something sacred. The village was quiet. After the trial, no one looked at Kai like he was prey anymore. No more laughs, no more stares, just silence and respect. But Shivala was distant. She didn't speak much. She kept her distance. She walked through the trees, alone at night, and stared at the sky for hours. Kai felt it. Something was missing. That evening, the drums were silent. Torches were out. Stars watched from above. Shivala came to Kai's small shelter and stood without a word. She looked different. Not like a warrior. Not like a healer. But like someone hiding a deep storm inside. She knelt beside him, her large eyes full of something fragile. Then she spoke one word. Bond. Kai blinked. Bond? She nodded. Her voice was barely a whisper. Your kind doesn't bond like us. Kai leaned forward. What does that mean? Shivala took a deep breath and pulled out the memory stone again. But this time she placed it between both of their hearts. She whispered something ancient. The stone glowed red, and everything changed. Suddenly, Kai saw her memories again, but deeper. Not just sights and sounds. He felt her emotions, a young Shivala standing alone at a village edge as others danced and celebrated. She had strength, but no friends. She healed others, but no one healed her. One day, a sky stone fell from the sky. She ran to it, expecting fire, but instead she saw a tiny image of a creature, a human, a figure holding a torch, offering light in the dark. The old seer of the village had once said, "The star-bonded will return, and the fire of the small will warm the heart of the lost." Shivala had waited for years, and now, Kai was here. The stone dimmed. Kai opened his eyes. He couldn't speak. Shivala looked at him, eyes wet, but proud. "You thought I wanted to eat you," she whispered. Kai nodded, embarrassed. "Yeah, I did." She smiled gently, then placed one large hand on his chest. "I only wanted to be seen." Kai reached up and touched her hand. "I see you now." Shivala closed her eyes, and for the first time she leaned down, forehead to forehead, letting their breath mix under the stars. There was no kiss, no wild passion, just connection, warmth, peace, a silent promise that no war, no fear, and no tribe could erase. But their moment was short. A sound came from the trees. Drums again, but not their village. Strangers, enemies. Shivala stood up fast, eyes cold now. Kai asked, "What's happening?" She whispered, "They want the bond broken. They want you gone." The forest held its breath. Deep drums echoed from beyond the cliffs, slow, cold, and threatening. Firelight danced in the dark. Birds had flown. Animals were gone. Kai stood beside Shivala at the edge of the village. "Who are they?" he asked. She didn't blink. "They are from the south. They do not believe in the bond. They say I broke the ancient law." Kai looked around. The other giants, those who had once mocked him, now looked afraid. One elder spoke in their language, pointing at Kai, then at the sky. Shivala replied sharply. Kai didn't need a translation. They wanted to hand him over. She refused, and war began. Just before dawn, the outsiders came, giants like Shivala, but wearing black paint on their faces and sharp stone spears in their hands. They marched with fire in their eyes. Shivala stood in front of Kai, but Kai stepped forward too. "No," he said, "this time we fight together." She looked at him surprised, then proud. Kai ran back to the village and pulled out pieces of his escape pod. Broken wires, metal shards, batteries, human tech. He tied glowing traps between trees. He placed spark stones near the village border, small charges under fallen leaves. Then, he climbed a tree with a spear made of sharpened pod metal. He waited. The first attack came fast. 5 black-painted warriors charged through the trees. One hit a wire. The ground exploded in a flash of fire and sparks. Another stepped on a sparkstone. His legs went numb. Kai jumped from the tree, landed hard, and slammed his metal spear into the ground, releasing an electric burst. The outsiders shouted in confusion. This was not the war they expected. This was human war. Shivala led the village fighters. Her blade moved like wind. She didn't just fight, she danced. Kai fought beside her. He wasn't fast or strong, but he was smart. When an enemy got close, he ducked, rolled, and threw flash powder into their eyes. He wasn't a giant, but he was a warrior, and soon the enemy began to fall back. The sun rose red. The smoke lifted. The outsiders were gone. Some ran, some limped, some were carried. The village was saved. Kai sat under a tree, breathing hard, cuts on his arm, dirt on his face. Shivala knelt beside him. She placed her hand on his shoulder. They didn't speak. They didn't need to. Their bond had survived fire, and now it was unbreakable. But far above, on a cliff that no one noticed, a tiny dot of silver metal hovered silently in the sky. A human rescue drone. Kai didn't see it, but it saw him, and it sent a signal across the stars. Earth had found him. The sun had fully risen. The village was quiet now. Fires were out. The wounded were resting. The warriors were cleaning their weapons. Kai sat beside a small pool, washing blood from his hands. The water turned red, then clear again. He was not the same man who had crashed here. His face had changed. His heart had changed. Behind him, Shivala walked silently. Her steps were soft. She sat beside him and placed a warm hand on his shoulder. "They will come for you," she whispered. Kai looked up. "How do you know?" Shivala didn't speak. She pointed to the sky. Kai followed her finger and froze. A silver shape moved through the clouds. A ship. Human design. Clean, sharp, and fast. A rescue team. They had found him. An hour later, the ship landed outside the village. Its engines burned the grass. 3 humans in armor stepped out holding scanners and weapons. "Lieutenant Kai," the lead officer said, "you're alive." Kai didn't answer right away. He looked at Shivala. She stood tall, calm, but her fingers trembled slightly. The officer stepped forward. "We can take you home now. Medbay, full care, your family, your planet. They all think you're dead." Kai nodded slowly, then asked, "And what about her?" The officer blinked. "She's a local. She's not just local," Kai said. "She saved me. She fought for me. She healed me." The officer looked confused. "You mean she helped you survive?" Kai smiled softly. "No, she helped me live." The officer stepped aside. "Your choice, sir. Come with us or stay here." Kai turned to Shivala. She said nothing, but her eyes said everything. Fear, hope, uncertainty. Kai looked at the ship, then at the trees, then at her, and then he took her hand. He turned to the humans and said, "Tell Earth, I found something better. The ship left. The sky went quiet again. In the village, a new fire was lit. A new bond was celebrated. Kai stood beside Shivala as the seers painted golden lines on his arms. The tribe bowed, not because he was a warrior, not because he was human, but because he chose them, and her. Later that night, under the stars, Shivala and Kai sat near the glowing pond. She leaned close and whispered, "You were afraid I would eat you." Kai chuckled. "I was terrified." She smiled. "But I never wanted your body," she said. "I wanted your heart." Kai took her hand gently. "You have it." And in the quiet galaxy above, where giants were feared and humans were forgotten, a new legend was born, about the tiny man who walked into the jaws of a monster and gave her a reason to smile again.